6.7, solving equations using matrices. Well, we've solved systems of equations by using graphing. We've solved systems of equations by solving simultaneously with algebra. Well, one way we're going to look at in this course is how you can set up a matrix from the equations. Well, main thing you do is you take the coefficients and make a matrix just out of the coefficient. And then you make a column matrix out of the variables, and then put the solutions on the other side. And then we can solve it by doing what's called an inverse matrix, which is A inverse B. So if you look at like this example right here, if we take these coefficients, 2, 3, and -1 would be our first matrix, and 2 would be the solution matrix. So, hold on, I'm going to fix my screen. Okay. So 2, 3, -1, and then the column was x, y, and z. Those are our variables. And the solutions were 2, 3, and 1. Those go in the third column on the other side of the equal sign. Well, to solve that, to get this x, y, and z all alone, the only way you can get rid of matrix is with the inverse matrix. So if we take the inverse matrix of this side, it cancels that out. And then we have to do the inverse matrix of this side, and it has to go in front. So it would be A inverse B. And that's how we get this answer. Now, we're going to let the calculator or Desmos do those work for us. On the calculator, we have to go to Menu and Matrix, and then Create, and then we put in our matrix, and then we just tell it to do A inverse B, and it'll do the work for us. If you're using Desmos, you can either Google search Desmos Matrix Calculator, or just type desmos.com/matrix, and then it'll give you a matrix calculator, and then you just calculate A inverse B. And I'll try to show you both ways. So let's look at number 1. Number 1 says, using a graphic calculator or Desmos use it to solve this system. So I take just the coefficients, and so that's going to be 2/3 for the first one and 5 for the second one, and then square root of 5 and -6. And then we say x and y in a column, and we set it equal to the solutions, which are -10 and 0. Well, this is our A matrix. This is our B matrix. To solve it, we have to do A inverse B. And A inverse would be 2/3, 5, square root of 5, -6 with a little -1 out here. And then B is the other side, which is -10 and 0. And we're going to let the calculator do the work for us. So first I'm going to do a calculator, and then I'll show you with Desmos. So on a calculator, I start with a blank calculator page, and we go Menu and choose Matrix. And first we're going to create the matrix. And then number 1 was matrix. And our very first matrix that we were looking at was this A inverse, which is a 2 by 2. So I'm going to enter in a 2 by 2. So it's 2 rows, 2 columns. And now I just enter in those coefficients, which were 2/3. I think, let me double check. 2/3, yes. So 2/3 for the first one. So I'd say 2 divided by 3. And tab will get you to the next one if you don't want to have to arrow. And then we had 5. And then tab. And we had square root of 5. Square root of 5. And then in the last one we had, was it -6? -6. Tab 6. Whoops. So square root of 5, tab just took me out of the square root, and then tab to get there. Now you can either tab or arrow. I'm going to arrow, and I'm going to say raised to the -1 power. So that makes it the A inverse. And then get out of the power, and then we want to do times B. And you can put a times sign, or you can just enter in the other matrix, which is B. And matrix B was 2 rows, but only 1 column. And that was -10 and 0. Let me say -10 in the first one, tab 0 in the second one, and that tells us our 2 answers. So 2/3, 5, square root of 5, and oh, I forgot my -6. I was like, why did I not get the same answer? That should be, whoops, -6. And now you get -3.952 and -1.473. So x is, let me go back to my work page. So x is the first one, which was 3.952. It said the nearest thousandth is 3 decimal places. 3.952. And y is negative 1.473. And that gives us our x and our y. Now to do that same thing with Desmos, we go to desmos.com/graphing calculator, or /matrix, sorry. I was trying to think and fix my screen at the same time. And so it says a new matrix, and it already makes it 2 by 2 by default, and you can change that here. And we had 2 divided by 3 was our first matrix. And then we had 5. And here we had square root of 5. Square root of 5. And the last cell was negative 6. So negative 6. And then we go outside the matrix. Oh, I press enter again. And it's okay, what do you want to do with that? And I want to do inverse. Oh, I guess I needed to. Can I go back? I need to. Oh, whoops. Negative 6. Enter. And that's A. So I want to do A inverse. Now let's calculate B before we do that. So let me backspace out of here and put in B. Backspace too far. B is a new matrix, and it is only one column, and it was negative 10 and 0. Negative 10 and 0. And if I say A inverse B, there's those same answers we just got on the calculator. So you can use Desmos or you can use a graphing calculator, either way. So let's go to number 2. We're going to do the same thing. Now, on this one, I made it a little uglier. We've got X, Y, and Z, so it's going to be a 3 by 3 matrix. So the first matrix is E, which is just like pi. It's a number on it's a letter that represents a number. We have E, pi, and negative square root of 2. And then the middle row is 8 for X. Y goes next. Well, there's not a Y, so that's a 0. And then negative 2. And the third row, there's no X, so 0 for the X, square root of 7 for the Y, and 1 for the Z. And so then we put X, Y, Z in a column, and then say equals the solution, which is 1, 10, and negative E. And now we're going to do A inverse B is going to be the inverse of this one times this one. So let's use a calculator. So let me practice that again. Let's make this a little bit larger so my buttons aren't quite as small. Okay, I got that a little bit bigger. And I can get that a little. There we go. Now I can see things better. So, menu, matrix, create a matrix, and I want it to be 3 rows and 3 columns, and okay. And our coefficients were E, which use this button for E, but then backspace out of the power. Then tab, then we had a pi on the next one, I believe. Yes, pi, which is right down here. E pi, tab, and then we had negative square root of 2. And then tab, and the next row had 8 tab, 0 tab. Oh crap, I wasn't paying attention. I was looking at the wrong spot. My bad. That was negative square root of 2. That's what happens when I look away. Tab to get out of here, and then tab to go to the next term. I gotta forget to have to double tab when you're square root. 8 tab, 0 tab, negative 2. I'm gonna make sure I don't make any mistakes. And then the bottom row is 0 tab, square root of 7, tab twice, and then 1. And so then you can tab, get out the end, and I want to do raised to the negative 1, so A inverse. And then get out of the power, and then we do times, or we can just do menu, matrix, enter in a new matrix, which was 3 rows, but only 1 column this time. And this is the B matrix, which was the solution. And on the other side, we had 1, 10, and negative E. So 1, tab, 10, tab, negative E. But I have a power, so backspace to get rid of the power. Don't use the E at the bottom. Whoops, never use the E at the bottom. Always use the E here for when you're doing numeric E. And this tells me X is 1.142, B is negative 0.864, and C is negative 0.432. Okay. So now we'd go write those down. So I'll go ahead and write those down. So x is the first one, which was 1.142. Y was the second one, which was negative 0.864. Negative 0.864. And z was negative 0.432. Negative 0.432. There's x, y, and z. And we're ready to move on. We got a couple more of these. So here's one that they did. They gave us an answer and they want to know, is that the solution? Well, if you notice on this one, we have x and y. We should only have, 3x, not 2x. 3x plus 5y on this side. Then it should equal the solution. So if I add 9 to both sides, it's a positive 9 over here. And then 2x plus 3y, and that would be 5. That gives us where we're going to have a matrix that's 3, 5, 2, and 3. And if we do A inverse B, B was 9 and 5. And if you did this up here, you might get the wrong signs. So we got to do A inverse B. So let's use Desmos again. So let's see. Is there a way to start fresh? What if I reload the page just to get... Okay, there's a fresh one. So first matrix is A, and we had 3, 5, 2, 3. 3, 5, 2, 3. And then the second matrix, if I said B, is only one column, and it was 9 and 5. 9 in the first one, and 5 in the second one. So I have A inverse B. We get negative 2 for x and 3 for y. Negative 2, 3. So yes, that one's true. X equals negative 2, y equals 3, and that's exactly what they said it was. So yes. Now, one other way to look at these is another type of matrix. It's called an augmented matrix. An augmented matrix, they do it all in one row. And if you see it all in one row, this is the x, this is the y, this is the z, if there's a 1, 1, and a 1. Otherwise, they're coefficients for those. And they put the solution on the other side of a vertical line, and they just do it in one matrix. Like if you see one like this, if it's x with zeros, that would be x equals 10, y equals negative 2, and z equals 3. This one would be something like x would be 1x plus 2y minus 3z equals 5. And this row would be y plus 10z equals 7. And the bottom row is 0 is equal to negative 10. Well, that's not possible. There's no letter there. If you ever get a row that's all zeros, we can't do that. If it's all zeros on the left, that's no solution. If it's all zeros equals another number, it's not possible. There has to be a 1 or some other number there, but you can't have all zeros. So if you ever see one that's all zeros, you can immediately go, if it's all zeros on the left side, it's a no solution. And that's what you need to know to be able to do this lesson. Good luck on your assignment.